Hey friends, welcome back. In January, I started 12 books and finished 10 of them, so let's talk about it. My first book of 2025 was actually Days at the Murasaki Bookshop by Satoshi Yagasawa. This one is a short little slice of life story, often compared to Welcome to the Hunamdong Bookshop by Hwangbo Rem, and that book was my best book of 2024. So I was trying to go into this one with not as high expectations because I didn't want to set it up for failure, but I was really excited going into it. Ultimately, I'm glad I read it. I am very grateful for not only Daryan, who sent this to me, but also Adele, both patrons, both friends. This one is following our main character, Takako, as she's going through a rough patch in her life. The guy that she's been seeing, she finds out has been cheating on her and is actually engaged to another woman. She loses her job, her friends, and ultimately finds herself working at her uncle's bookshop in the booksellers district in Tokyo, which is actually really fun because Kayla and I actually had the pleasure of visiting this little neighborhood of Tokyo. It was really kind of cool to be able to recognize some places and have some sort of like actual fundamental like geographical knowledge of where our main character was going. So reading this book, I had a lot of like really good feelings because reading a book that's like set in America and it's like saying that our main character is going to Chicago or New York, it's like, yes, that is fun and cool, but like there's something special about a place that's so far from home and having physically been there. Like that I think is the coolest part about travel, is being able to come back home and read a book about the place and be like, oh, I know what that is. Of course, being in the physical destination of travel is awesome, not taking that away, but also being able to read and understand where Takako was super, super cool. However, the book itself kind of was up and down for me. The storyline and plot was good enough. I was content and having a good time. I knew it would be sort of just like a slower, like character-driven story, but what was bothering me was how some of the characters were portrayed or how their behaviors and reactions to certain situations played out within the plot didn't really feel very consistent as to how they were originally described and created in the beginning of the book. So a couple times I did get a little bit taken out of the story, but again, I am glad that I read it and my experience was pretty good. It feels like a very solid 3-star book, like a positive 3. The next 5 books that I will mention in succession are all in one of my favorite videos that I do every single year. It is the Reading Booktubers Best Books of the Previous Year video. Every year I read 5 books and this year was a banging list. It was really good. I'll leave the link to that video down below if you want to hear like real-time reactions and even more in-depth thoughts of these books, but I will share like some general thoughts and my star ratings of all of these. But again, check out that link for that vlog because I'm really proud of it. I love it. First in that video, I read The Ministry of Time by Hayley. Oh, someone just commented today about how to properly say this author's name because it's Cambodian and I said it wrong multiple times. Okay, so this is The Ministry of Time by Kaitlyn Bradley. So it looks like Kayleigh, and that's what I was saying. First of all, I was saying like Kayleen Bradley, and then I was like, oh no, there's an I there, so then it's Kayleigh, but no, it is Kaitlyn, which means darling in Cambodian. Fun fact. Thank you so much, Lottie, for bringing that to my attention. So, Ministry of Time, this was my first 5-star of the year. I love this book. I think that it absolutely deserves to be, all of these books, all 5 of them deserve to be on people's best books of the year. Quite frankly, I had a grand old time with this video, but this writing is some of my favorites. I laughed out loud multiple times. The characters in the story are so funny. I annotated the hell out of this book because Kaitlyn's writing is actually beautiful. It was one of those stories that when I finished it, the last 4 paragraphs I had to have read at least 5 times. It felt like I needed to hear it. Not only that, but some of the quotes that I was annotating felt like they were like plucked from my consciousness, that I have like already felt and internally said those things. And it's just beautiful. At its core, it is a sci-fi book, but there is a very heavy romance plot. This book is basically about a branch of government called the Ministry of Time, and they are trying to see if time travel is feasible for like the time-space continuum, but also for the human body. So they're plucking people out of the history that they already know died. So they're taking them out of history, bringing them to the present day, and dropping them with a bridge. Someone with the Ministry of Time trying to get them to acclimate to like today's day and age. And our bridge and our expat that got brought from 1845, I think, 1847, there's a romance that happens, and it's a very like doomed romance because we don't even know if Commander Gore, the expat that is assigned to our main character, will live. But it's so insightful. It is very tragic in many ways. It gives a lot of glimpses into like where our world could be going with like war and climate change and everything like that. Like I felt like this book was very well-rounded, stunning. 5 out of 5. I said I wasn't going to talk too much about these books, but obviously that was a lot of words. I'm going to actually do these 4 a little bit faster. I then read Bride by Ellie Hazelwood. This one I was most scared of in this video, and I had such a good time. It is a vampire and werewolf romance, and it's so good. The banter, the sass, the story, everything about it was just intriguing, very fast paced, and I just ate it up. I ate it up. I can't remember if I think I gave it 4.5 stars, maybe 5 stars. I don't know. I loved it. I then read We Used to Live Here by Marcus Kluwer. Like, what is this book? I don't know, but it was like 4.5 or 5 stars as well. This is about our main character and her partner who just bought this house that's a fixer-upper. The previous family, or the previous guy that grew up in this house, shows up on the doorstep with his family in tow saying like, hey, I used to live here. Can I just like bring my family in and give them a quick tour of where their dad grew up? And then they like never leave. And it's really creepy. It's a horror book, if that wasn't clear. It's wild. By the end, it's like completely unhinged, honestly. Like the theories on Reddit that I was reading like made me love this book even more because it gave me things that I didn't pick up on immediately. I think this was really good, really good. I also read The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. My first Kristen Hanna ever, and it did not disappoint. Writing was beautiful, very descriptive. It feels like a very strong 4 for me. This is like World War II, Nazi-occupied France, following 2 sisters as they are dealing with the occupation and what's going on to them and around them in very different ways. Very sad, very well done. I really did like it. Something is holding me back. I don't know why it's not 5 stars, but it's just sometimes you don't get that feeling. And I didn't get the feeling with this one, but I still I love it. I do recommend it for sure. The last book in that video was Heartless Hunter or Crimson Moth Book 1 by Kristen Ciccarelli. I loved it. This is a witch and a witch hunter romance, and need I say more? The way that witches are described and created in this world and how they use their magic is all very, very interesting. I think that Kristen did a great job at building the world and characters. The banter's phenomenal. I cannot wait to read book 2. It might be featured in a video coming out on Valentine's Day. Just saying. Okay, and then, guys, okay, I don't even know how I'm gonna do this. I read Martyr by Kaveh Akbar, and Kayla and I buddy read this, and it was such a fun experience. We saw a book talk with Kaveh here in Indianapolis last week, and he is such a gem. A ray of sunshine. Phenomenal. I love him. If you haven't read Martyr, like I beg of you to read Martyr. I think it was my favorite book of the month. Daryan will be so excited to hear that. If it's not this one, then Ministry of Time is also like right behind it, just for the record. But Martyr, I think it's my favorite book of the year so far. That's so scary to say because it's only January. But truly, I don't even know like what to say about this book. Okay. Wow, it's about our main character Cyrus, and he's an addict. He's very much a character who's like pretty self-involved in this time in his life, and he grew up with basically just his father because his mother died when she was flying in a plane and a US ship like shot the plane out of the sky. And he's sort of been grappling ever since and trying to make sense of it through his poetry, through his writing. And one day, I think after an AA meeting, he sees an ad for this Iranian artist who is setting up a exhibit in a New York art museum called Death Speak. Basically, she has stopped cancer treatment and is setting up a chair in an art exhibit and talking to people in the last days of her life. And he sees this as a sign, and he travels to New York with his best friend Z, and he's going to talk to her, try to get some information and sort of just pick her brain about like what she's doing and what's going on, since the book that he's trying to write is about martyrs. And he's just very interested in all of it. And Kaveh is truly just a masterful writer. So beautiful and so insightful. I don't think I'll stop thinking about this for a very, very long time. The ending specifically lives rent-free in my head, and I'm so honored that I got to see him talk about it. Okay, next, I read A Woman Is No Man by Etaf Room. Shout out to Libby for having this on audiobook because it was a phenomenal audiobook experience. The back of the book has like a perfect little blurb that I'm just gonna read it to you because that pitch is what did it for me. It is 3 generations of Palestinian American women are torn between individual desire and the strict Arab culture in this powerful debut, a heart-wrenching story story of love, intrigue, courage, and betrayal that will resonate with women from all backgrounds, giving voice to the silenced and agency to the oppressed. If there's one thing about me, it's that I love a multi-generational story, and especially if it spans like across the world. In this book, we're getting point of views and scenes from these characters while they're in Palestine and while they're also in New York. We're seeing the differences in living and how these characters are dealing with the things that their culture is expecting of them, but also seeing so many similarities despite living in different countries and different parts of the world. This is not an easy book to read by any means. There is a lot of on-page and discussion of domestic abuse, and it also touches heavily on like postpartum depression. The thing that really gets me about this book in particular is how Etaf Room was able to make me really hate but also sympathize with almost every single character that's put on the page. And that's part of why I love a multi-generational story so much, because you really see why someone is the way they are. It's not because who someone is at any given time is not because of what's going on right now in their life. It is because of everything that has happened up until that point and what they are going to be doing moving forward. Everything plays a factor in who someone is. And this book really does touch on that. And it also weaves in all of the culture and expectations that go along with these things. I think it was done beautifully, but again, it is difficult. It is pretty sad at a lot of points in the story. So keep that in mind, but it is one that I recommend for sure. I don't know if it's a 4.5 or a 5 right now, but I feel good about saying like it's a 4.5 for the moment. Another one that I finished this month is The Cabinet by Eun-Soo Kim, translated by Sean-Lynn Halbert. Caleb and I actually were buddy reading this one as well. We did a little road trip reading vlog for it that it's an exclusive video for my Patreon. We listened to this on audio, again, during the road trip, and ultimately Caleb has DNF'd it, and I finished it purely just to close out the reading vlog. It was kind of a letdown, and we're both so bummed about it because one, the cover's adorable, and two, the concept is very cool. The idea is that there is a ordinary file cabinet somewhere in a government building that houses a bunch of files of real people with very different abilities or different things about them. They call them symptomers. Some of these people have like a ginkgo tree growing from their pinky, or a lizard in place of a tongue, or random things like that. So the idea is all very cool. However, the execution of the story, I think, and Caleb as well, I'm gonna take how Caleb mentioned it in the video because I think he did a great job at describing it. It almost feels like Eun-Soo Kim was taking a bunch of random ideas that he had for stories and then just tossing them all in one book and talking about them in a way that didn't do anything special. It all felt pretty disjointed, and like the central plot was almost non-existent most of the time. I will say that the audiobook experience might have been the wrong way to go because it was very difficult to know when we were following our main character and then when we were reading from one of the symptomers files. So I don't really know what to tell you. I did not have fun reading it, unfortunately. The last 15% or so actually was the best part of the book, so I am glad that I finished it. There are some like body horror things that go on towards the end, and I do like the final chapter, but those were really the only things that redeemed it for me. I am going to be giving this a 2. The last book that I did finish in its entirety was I Hope This Finds You Well by Natalie Sue. This is a like workplace slice of life lit fic where our main character Jolene gets access to all of her coworkers' emails, DMs, everything, and she uses all this information to get her a leg up in like a promotion basically so that she doesn't lose her job. And she becomes friends with the new HR guy. There's like a little subplot of romance, but also like our main character is really going through it. She is not in a good space ever since something happened with her best friend when they were kids. And this is actually my book club pick for January in the book club that I run in my Patreon. We're going to be chatting about this next Sunday, so I'm excited to hear what everyone has to say about it because I'm a little bit torn on my rating. I think that it was really well done and it was funny. Like I laughed out loud multiple times. I think the banter between our main character and the HR guy was good, but it did sort of feel very one note. I'm kind of stuck between like a 3.5 and a 4. So I still feel good about it because I did like the writing. I liked the messages. I liked the exploration of mental health and also the concept that you don't know what everyone's going through. so maybe don't be a jerk. But I liked it. I think I'm gonna say that it's a 4, and I think that that will stand true, but we'll see. We'll see at book club. The last 2 books that I just want to mention are ones that I'm gonna be carrying over into February. I started The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Leong. I am like 60% of the way through. I was listening to this with my Spotify audiobook hours, and then I ran out of hours, which was really unfortunate, but I will finish this sometime this month on audio, most likely. It is going okay. It's going okay. It feels like a more cozy version of Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. So if you like one, you might like the other. So far, I much prefer Kings of the Wild, but it's still cute. I will finish it. The other book that I won't be saying anything about really is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I did start this, and I want to say I'm like halfway through by now. This isn't a reading vlog that will be an exclusive video for my Patreon that will come out by the end of the month or at the very beginning of March. So I'm excited about it. But that is all that I have for you today. And remember, I'm not doing monthly TBRs this year, at least in the first half of this year, but I'm really liking it. So I think I'm gonna stick to that. But check out the Spin the Bottle TBR game that I did at the beginning of January. I'll link it down below. It was a fun one. I used to do it every month, but right now I'm gonna do it seasonally. So it's a chaotic video. That way you can get an idea of what I might be reading in February and also March. So go check that out. Thank you guys so much for being here and hanging out with me for a little bit. If you are still here, then leave me the horse emoji down below in the comments. And while you're down there, please do subscribe and like the video. It helps me out a lot. And of course, be kind to one another and happy reading. Bye.